Good evening. I hereby call this January the 13th meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. There is a fairly short agenda today, but as always, before we get started, we'd like to recognize all the brave men and women of our public safety departments for the work that they do to keep our community safe. Our brave men and women of the police department, led by Chief Thompson. I know Chief Thompson isn't here, but we're well represented by Assistant Chief Mouse. Thank you for being here today. I see Mr. August Vernon, who's Director of Emergency Management. Thank you and your department for what you do. I see our Chief of Fire, Chief Mayo. Thank you for what you do. We're also here representing the public safety attorney and their department in the police housing. Attorney Sykes, thank you for being here, and our Attorney Carmen, City Manager Garrity. Thank you all, Assistant City Managers, for the work that you do. We have two items on the general agenda. One item will need to be continued. First item is a resolution authorizing the submission of an application to the Department of Homeland Security. The second is a presentation on potential gun violence solutions. We will need to continue that item to our February agenda. So that leaves the consent agenda. Members of the committee and council, items on the consent agenda are unanimously approved with one sweeping motion, unless as a member of this committee wishes the item to be pulled for consideration. There's only one item on the agenda, so if there is
motion approved.
A motion and a second, we can move forward with the consent agenda. It's been motioned and properly seconded. All in favor, please vote yes. Opposers likewise. Consent agenda is approved. Item G1, please.
Item G1, resolution authorizing submission of an application to the Department of Homeland Security for an assistance to firefighters grant.
Giving us a little information on the item is Assistant City Manager Damon DeCain. Or,
good evening, Chairman Taylor, members of the Public Safety Committee.
good evening.
I'd like to introduce Trey Mayo, our chief, our fire chief. And he'll take it from here.
Chief Mayo certainly doesn't need an introduction. You have the floor, Chief Mayo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeCain. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee and council. This is, so for about 3 or 4 years now, we've been undertaking an effort to get washers and dryers, as you would know them in your house. We use a heavier duty model than that, but that's what I'm talking about. And then turnout gear extractors, which is, so turnout gear for us, that's the lingo for the structural firefighting ensemble that firefighters wear during interior firefighting operations. So the device that washes those is called an extractor. It's like a 60-pound washing machine. And this is in an effort to abate particulate carcinogenic matter that firefighters are getting on their turnout gear in the modern fire environment due to the proliferation of synthetics, and for laundering uniforms that are also exposed to those vapors and particulate matter from combustion. And we also are seeing with increasing frequency exposure to bed bugs. We're having bed bugs contaminate fire apparatus and fire stations a handful of times a year, and the accepted way to treat bed bugs is to launder and dry those garments and linens and whatever has been affected at high heat for 30 minutes. So our challenge over the past several years has not been the equipment. The challenge has been when the fire stations were built, utilities were not put in place to support these appliances. There's no 240 power. Those 60-pound extractors have to have a 3-inch drain to drain the water out of them. So this is an opportunity. We have an opportunity coming up. The grant application period has not opened. I don't know exactly what the guidance is, but I'm going on last year's guidance. So this is a request for authorization to apply for an Assistance to Firefighters grant to fund utility infrastructure and equipment to get these appliances in the 13 of the 19 fire stations where they are not currently. And if you do the math, if you add up, so this would be a $510,000 project, and I've got a $76,500 match in there, which is not 10%. That's 15%. The guidance last year was 10%, but having been burned by using old guidance in the past, I put a little 5% cushion in there in case something changes or we fall into a different funding category. Funding, the match is the match is based on the size of the municipality. So I did put a little cushion in there if you did the math and thought I had fat fingering the calculator.
Thank you, Chief. This seems to be a little bit of a no-brainer. Thank you for bringing this forward for consideration. Are there any questions for Chief Mayo? Mr. Larson, and then Mr. Bessie.
I love the details, so first, I'm all in favor of this, but let's go to the washing machines and the heavy equipment that firefighters wear when they come back into the station. You have, what, basically 4-man crew on each truck, roughly, somewhere in that range.
That's a good.
They come back in, you got 4 firefighters come back in with all their equipment, clothing, whatever, and you have one washing machine?
There is, so in most stations, there would be a set of set of washers and dryer, a washer and dryer set, like you'd have at your house, similar to what you'd have at your set. And then the extractor is a 60-pound machine. It'll hold 60 pounds of turnout gear at one time.
So I guess the real question is, you have replica clothing and stuff, so if they come back in with a dirty set and they strip down and start getting deloused or whatever the problem is, and the fire call comes in, they have a clean set to put on immediately.
Yes, sir. They have clean and dry uniforms ready to go in lockers at the fire station. And starting in 2014 or 15, all firefighters were provided a second set of turnout gear. Yes, sir. So we don't have to wait for that set to get cleaned and dry.
Precisely. So how many, can you process more than one set at a time in these units? Or is it, can you put like 3 firemen sets in a one washing machine and cover that, or you have to go through cycles of one at a time? How quickly can you
So
process
it will handle multiple sets of gear at one time, and just like anything else, it depends on the size of the firefighter as to how big the gear is. So 4 small firefighters probably at one time, larger firefighters, and we have some big guys and girls, more big guys, not so many big girls, but maybe down to 2 or 3 sets at a time for a large set of gear.
What astonished me in your proposal was that you were actually taking, this is a process that you're already doing, but you're having to do it off-site right now. You're taking these uniforms, you take them either to a commercial washing machine or to another station in order to process them.
We're doing it all in-house, yes, sir.
Which is crazy,
It is not accepted as a recommended practice to launder turnout gear at a laundromat.
So congratulations on this. I think it's great. It should save us a lot of time and money and make the turnaround a lot quicker. So
Yes, sir. Thank you.
congratulations. Good luck with it.
Thanks.
I recognize Councilmember Bessie, and then we'll see if we can get a motion on the floor.
All right. This is not really a question, it's just a supportive comment. One of the things we've learned in recent years is with the increasing use of materials, artificial materials in construction, that the residue from flame and smoke in house fires is incredibly toxic. The rates of certain types of cancer in professional firefighters is so dramatically higher than in the general population that it's becoming more and more accepted to treat that as a presumptive workplace exposure cancer. So anything we can do to speed the removal of that toxic material from the turnout gear and protect our firefighters is money well spent.
Thank you.
City Manager Gary.
I just wanted to comment too that it's not just the carcinogens from the turnout gear. As the chief mentioned, bed bugs are a real problem. And you talk to firefighters who their spouses don't want them bringing home their clothing with bed bugs on it. So it's our intent, if for some reason we don't get this grant, we're going to find another way to get this equipment.
Good.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that forward.
Motion to approve?
Got a motion? We need a second. All in favor, please vote yes to approve this item. That passes 3-0. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
As I mentioned in my introduction, item G2, we will continue until the February meeting. The young lady who was supposed to give the presentation had a death in the family. We wanted to give her a little time to grieve and then get back to us with the solutions on gun violence in our community. With that being said, we will recognize Mr. Larson for a quick comment.
Could I ask staff to look into something and maybe report back to us? I went around a neighborhood and I saw a fire hydrant that had been run over and smashed on the side, and it brought to mind, what is our policy on maintenance and repair, and whose responsibility is on fire hydrants And can we get some sort of information about the regular inspection of fire hydrants, what our program is in the maintenance, operation, replacement, and care of fire hydrants? I don't know whether it's utilities, fire department, facilities, who is actually taking care of our fire hydrants.
Well, Chief?
Chairman, we'll be happy to bring a report back.
That would be
Yeah,
fine.
thank you.
Just, I know it gets a little complicated.
Go ahead, is there any other business that should be considered for the good of the order? Seeing nothing further, we'll consider this meeting to be adjourned.